Hi friends, in this video I'm going to show you how I painted this lovely honey pot using the Alla Prima oil painting technique. So let's jump in. So for this particular demo I'm going to be using, I'm testing out some of the brushes that I was sent by Pan Art material suppliers. They were good enough to contact me and ask me if I would test out some of the brushes and materials. Sent me a lovely box of art goodies. So I will actually be using some of the brushes for this particular demo today. So I'm going to begin using the bristle brush. And initially what I want to do is preserve some of the lighter areas that I can see on the reference photo. There is some quite cool lighting, so I'm going to mix some white with some blue. I'm using a little bit of turquoise actually here, but ultramarine blue would also work. I just want to tint that white. Now I'm going to begin just preserving some of the very bright lights that I can actually see. I've just dropped down to a slightly smaller brush. This is one of the MazArt brushes, there's a small flat. And again, I'm just focusing on those very bright highlights. Now as I move over to the right hand side, you'll notice that I've changed the colour. I'm still looking for those brighter highlights, but this time I've just mixed a little bit of white and orange just to get some of those lighter tones, but over on the other side. They're not quite as bright as the left hand side. So this is something I like to do a lot, is to look for complements where I can. So we've got that lovely bright blue light over on the left, and then I'm using a warmer light with the orange and white over on the right hand side. So now I've picked up just cadmium orange. Again, I'm sort of trying to preserve those bright lights before we start adding any darker tones on there. And once again, I'm looking for where I can see that very bright light. Next, I'm going to start adding some of those darker reds that we can see. I'm not using any medium at all, but I am applying that paint quite thinly so that I'm able to add layers on. I want to work on this paint in Alla Prima, which basically means I'm trying to do it all in one layer. And whenever you work that way, you need to apply those under layers nice and thin. So again, if you look at the way I'm applying those brush strokes, you can see I'm really pushing that paint into the canvas. So I'm mixing a little bit of yellow ochre now to that mixture. So I've got a slightly lighter colour for the top part of the honey. So now I've got those really saturated colours preserved, I'm going to go and add that dark background on. And once again, I'm still applying that paint very, very thinly. I'm really scrubbing and using that bristle brush to really push that paint into the weave of the canvas. Now, I already prepared these canvas boards with some burnt umber, which I allowed to dry. That was a burnt umber acrylic wash, and then I transferred my drawing on top of that. So that's why we've got a slightly toned canvas. And once again, just drop into a smaller brush as I work my way around all those details. I'm beginning to add a few dark streaks now into that initial undercolour. And just very carefully brushing those in. And I'm also just going to throw in a little bit of cadmium red as well. I'm not seeing this on the reference photo. This is me using a little bit of artistic license and trying to make a really nice and interesting background. Here I'm adding a little bit of light to the foreground, keeping it very, very loose, and I'm using really kind of a dirty white. I've got some of that burnt umber on the brush, and again I'm keeping my strokes nice and loose. Add in a little bit of cadmium orange to that mixture just to get that feeling of some reflective light. Going into a darker mixture now, trying to add some of that contrast. The background will be shining through the glass in certain areas, so you do need some of that darker background tone to be able to shine through that glass jar. So taking a little burnt sienna now, and I'm going to start working on that honey dipper. I'm avoiding those lighter areas that we applied earlier. And again, I'm putting a very, very thin layer on here. Once again, I'm mixing a darker tone so that I can start adding some of those details. So what you're seeing now is I have a wipeout tool, and once again I'm just going over and adding those details by erasing back to that original undercolour. This is one of my go-to tools whenever you're using oils, is to be able to wipe back to the colours underneath. So we've been working quite thinly up to now. Now, as you start to add those highlights, you need to go thicker with the paint. I'm using a nice pale yellow colour here now to get that feeling of the honey just dripping, but you do need that paint to go on nice and thick so that it really stands out and looks very bright. Using a liner brush now and very, very thick paint, I'm trying to get that lovely rim light that you can see. Rolling that brush so that I get a nice fine point, and I'm very carefully just dragging that so it stays very thick and very bright. So this time I'm doing the same on the other side, trying to get that lovely bright rim light. I'm back to using that cooler white with a touch of blue at this point. You really will find that adding that little bit of blue really makes that colour very, very bright. Using a dark mixture now of burnt sienna and a little bit of crimson, I'm going to start adding the dark shadows that I can see of the bubbles, the air bubbles inside of the honey. Using a warmer highlight now of yellow ochre and white, I'm going back and highlighting each of these little air bubbles. I'm still using that very fine liner so that I can get some really tiny details. I'm adding a little extra details now on the tablecloth. I'm not going to put all of the details that I see on the reference photo, just a few extra details to add some interest. Now everything's in place. Once again, I'm back with that very thick highlight colour. Mostly white with a little touch of blue, but this is being applied very, very thickly. I'm carefully looking where I can see that extra bit of shine. applying that room light with that white with a very small amount of blue. And once I'm happy with everything, I use a liner brush. I do add a little bit of medium to thin the paint slightly so it's more inky, and then I sign the painting. A big thank you to Pan Art for sending me that lovely box of goodies, and I will be doing some other reviews in future videos on some of the other products that they have actually sent me. I really do hope you've enjoyed this tutorial, and if you have, don't forget to let me know in the comments down below, and also like the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. If you are interested in longer tutorials from me, don't forget to check out the MazArt Academy, and I'll leave a link to that in the description box below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again in the next video.